All right, man. We're gonna get straight into this. So, yeah, this is a Fuse Life podcast. This is episode 116, but we are carrying on with the wealth theme, the money and wealth and riches theme that seems to trigger a lot of people. And I think it's a good thing when you get triggered, right, Brian? What do you think?
Yeah, come on. Gotta address our mindsets and our emotion.
And so, Brian and Robbie and Sebastian, we've been on here over the last 7 days, 3 or 4 times, different times, and this is the last session here as we build to the workshop we're doing next week, which I'm super excited about. So, Brian, you've been on here before. Is there anything you want to say as we open up this conversation?
No, I'm excited to talk about this. I think it's really important for where God's wanting to take the body of Christ, and really to see the kingdom advance. We have to address our relationship to money and our mindsets and our reactions and all that stuff. So this is great.
Awesome. So, I just had that thought just before your story and how you came to understanding abundance and wealth and the way you explain it. Was there a time where you didn't understand this, and how did you come through that?
Yeah. For part of my journey with God, I functioned like an orphan, probably like a lot of us, our story, So that lack was kind of the worldview, that we're just gonna barely get by. And then just some horrible theology that I'd heard as well. So Jesus was poor, he was just like, just scraping by. And that was kind of the mindset, is that, if you're really gonna follow God, especially if you're gonna be in vocational ministry, you're gonna barely survive and you're gonna live miracle to miracle. And so the Israelite lifestyle became like, oh, well, we just live miracle to miracle, and that's God's design. And then, but deep down, I was like, I think there's something wrong with this. Like, I don't think this aligns with, the kingdom of God. And so God began to speak to me, kind of highlight verses many, many times before. And then just coming out of an orphan mentality in general, just began to shift how I see the kingdom, my role in the kingdom. And I think one of the biggest kind of thresholds I crossed was, oh my God, I want to be a part of changing the world. And I remember God saying, yeah, you're going to need a lot of money to do that. And it was kind of like, oh, well, because we kind of think, well, we're going to change the world and just spiritual things are going to happen, and they do. But it's like, well, in order to be able to do that stuff, there has to be resource. And so that kind of began a snowball effect where I was like, all right, I'm going to roll down this hill, and more revelation began to accumulate and insight into the heart of God for abundance for us, and that he actually delights when his children are prospering. Cities rejoice when we're prospering. And so I had to really address my relationship to money, how I related to money. And I really related as a slave, and that there was not much I could do. It was kind of like an ocean wave that I just have to let take me. And then to realize, hey, God's given me the ability to have dominion over money, and that money can not overtake my life, but I can overtake it to see the purposes of God fulfilled.
So good. There's a couple of things here, and we're going a little off topic, but hopefully you're okay with this. But because you're like a hybrid, I would say, like a hybrid, because you are, you're preaching in churches, you're teaching in churches, you're leading people to God in that sense, like this ministerial, priestly kind of call. But then you have these businesses, but you don't do business like someone who's just a Christian who might do business, and you're in both these worlds in a way. Can you touch on that a little bit, on journeying through that? Because you didn't just jump into, okay, now I'm a businessman and close that door, or I'm here, so I'll never go there. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, my wife and I were missionaries for 21 years.
Wow.
Specifically to universities. And so, our whole world was, miracle to miracle support. And then there was a shift at one point, just because it was like, hey, there's got to be more resource here for what we're doing. And I started a design business, and I was doing websites and logos and graphic design. And then that just kind of began to evolve into this, man, I really like business, and like there's something about this that kind of connects with who I am too. And I've always been entrepreneurial, but that was primarily in ministry. So my wife and I everything we've done has been starting something where there was nothing, like
Mm.
starting ministry, starting a church, starting a internship, whatever it is. And so it manifested in that way, and now it's beginning to spill into the business side as well. And I remember kind of thinking, oh, do I have to choose which way I'm going to go here? And God's like, no, like you do both. It's like
Mm.
you don't have to choose which one. It's like I've still called you to preach the gospel, to advance the kingdom, to speak in churches and conferences, which I love, but to also have a business side as well.
That's so good, man. I think a lot of people, maybe some of you listening, are in that fight. So I think that's so good to hear your part, your story. I remember my time of that exact thing. Do I go here or there? And it's like, no, go in the middle. And I'm like, what? But then that's how I found you. And I found all these other guys that I'm like, oh, you walk in the middle too. That's awesome. So I'd love to know your thoughts on the ability to be able to receive, or things that block people from receiving. You know, like there's scriptures like Jesus came to give us this abundant life. There are scriptures like you've been given all things pertaining to life and godliness. But most believers still seem to not be able to receive or see God move in their life financially or in abundance. What are your thoughts on that?
Receiving is interesting with an orphan mentality because, like, take a dinner, like, say you're out with a group of people, and or even just another person, and they're like, hey, I'm going to pay for the meal. And then there's like this argument. No, I'm going to pay for that. And we go back and forth. And it's like, it seems funny, but sometimes behind that is the person can't receive something
Mm,
because it takes them out of being in control. And so,
mm,
they have to be the one that pays. They always have to be the person that's doing whatever. And there's just something that's really built around the humility piece of, hey, to receive something, I have to be humble and realize that I actually need something.
wow.
And, with God, it's like, of his fullness we have received. We've all received this, but it's activated when I partner with what has been received. Even just the simple declaration of, hey, I've received his fullness. I received this, Father. Deuteronomy 8:18, in light of this conversation, he's given us power to create wealth. Well, it starts with God. I receive the power. I receive
Mm,
this. Now, wisdom, will you help me to know what to do with this power? And so there's just something powerful about being a sponge that says, I'm going to take what's coming in and I'm going to squeeze and it's going to come out as well. But I think, again, it comes back to the orphan mentality. I have to address my need to be in control.
man, that's so good. I'm loving this conversation. I feel like we could go so many ways. Like maybe here's another good question: is a lot of people think if money or wealth is going to come to me, it has to come this one way or this other way, like through my job, or it has to come through a business. Can we touch a little bit on some supernatural ways you've seen wealth start to come? That maybe you have some stories.
Yeah. I mean, it started kind of, I think some of the bigger ones were involved with cryptocurrency. So in 2018, I was just in prayer, randomly God said, hey, you need to learn about day trading. And this was specific to stocks at that time. And I was like, okay. And so I get on YouTube and I'm just trying to find the most viewed videos on this topic.
Mm,
And it was about a month, I'm just kind of doing a deep dive in this stuff. And then I'm at a conference in October of that year. So this was maybe June that God says, hey, learn about day trading. In October, I'm at this conference. This guy gets up to speak and he says, I'm not really a speaker. I don't do this normally. I'm a musician. He goes, but I'm a day trader. That's my job. I'm a day trader. And I'm thinking, this is kind of weird. Like, I've never met a day trader in this context, like speaking
mm,
at a conference, a Christian church conference. So I went up to him at the end and said, hey, man, this seems kind of interesting. Like, God kind of randomly told me to learn about day trading. You're a day trader. And then the guy starts freaking out. He's like, dude, I got the chills. I'm like, what's going on? He says, 10 years ago, God did the same thing to me.
wow.
Randomly said, learn about day trading. So this guy says, hey, I'm going to Zoom with you every week, and I'm going to teach you everything I know.
That is so good.
That was crazy. And so he's just kind of giving me his system and his protocols and all this stuff. And then that emerges or evolves into doors where God says, hey, learn about crypto, learn about Bitcoin. And I might spend 100 hours of research on Bitcoin. So like
Wow.
I get intense about this. Like if I'm going to learn about something, let's do this. Let's figure this out. And when I learned it, I was like, wow, like there's a lot of kingdom in this thing, like just the idea behind it. And then I started having dreams about coins and, coins I didn't know about. And, then I would put a little bit in there and then it would kind of explode. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. And so I think it's just, no matter how subtle God speaks to us, like even just like, oh, I feel like a nudge, I'm supposed to do this. I feel like when you become literate, whether it's finance or whatever the subject is, God's like, oh, you're interested. So I'm going to actually increase the level of revelation and begin to open the doors. And I think some people are just kind of waiting for God just to drop something in their lap. And there's just something about us partnering with God. And that partnership means I have to pursue something on my end. And that might be research. It might be asking people questions that are further along or have a key of insight. It could be a lot of different ways.
So good. What a story. And I love that you mentioned that you've done all these hours of research, because there are some people who think if it's from God, then it's just going to happen, like it's just God. That's the mark of something that's from God, which is
Yeah.
so interesting. Can you touch on that a little bit, like partnering versus, just expecting the whole platter to just end up there and you just want to eat?
I mean, I think we've all had moments where the platter does show up, which is
Mm,
awesome, but that's not all the time.
mm,
And I think the reason for that is God has designed us for relationship. Like it's not just, hey, I'm going to drop this thing on you, and there's no need to have friendship here. And a friendship and a relationship, it takes time. It's organic. You're meandering down the trail of life. But I think with partnership, I see it this way: like sonship is really powerful. It's foundational. We need to know who we are, identity.
mm,
And I said this in our live, like can we move on? Like,
mm,
can we progress beyond sonship? Not that we leave being a son or a daughter, but sonship propels us into partnership. And the problem, if we linger in sonship, we don't learn how to co-labor with God,
mm,
which is really the process of responsibility. I begin to take responsibility. So when God says, hey, learn about this, what did I do? Well, I took responsibility and I researched it. So I
mm,
spent my time and my energy to do this. And what began to happen is revelation, dreams began to come. Why? Because I'm partnering with what God has said.
mm,
I didn't just sit back as a son and say, all right, well, it's just gonna look, if that happens, and sometimes it does, like I said, that's amazing, but that's not
mm.
most of the time. Most of the time, God's like, hey, here's a thread where there's a ball of yarn. Are you going to pull on this thread? And are you going to search this thing out?
Wow.
God conceals things, right? It's the
Yeah.
glory of God conceal a matter, but it's the glory of kings to discover it. There's something powerful about that pursuit and discovery.
Mm. Wow. And so coming here now to, I guess, what we were really going to talk about, prosperity thinking, but we've already kind of been touching on this, and good stewardship. There are probably people here that are like, I live paycheck to paycheck, or I barely make my paycheck, or, I have a little bit left over. Uh, can you speak to them around prosperity thinking and good stewardship? Like, what really is that, and how can you begin that no matter where you are right now?
Yeah. I mean, we have to understand how money works. I think that's really the first step, is become financially literate. There's a reason schools don't teach about finance.
Mm,
It's a very specific reason, and it's to keep people in debt. They don't want people understanding how the monetary system works. It's a complex system and on purpose. And so you have these, when you really look at the infrastructure of the monetary system of most countries that have a central bank, they're very similar, is you get these people who have no real world experience in business. They're all academics. And they create these super complex formulas and language that's really intimidating. And people just don't really understand. The average person doesn't understand. And so we have to understand how this system works in order to navigate that system well. And even just the definition of money, money and currency are two different things. So your dollars, your fiat currency, that's not money. Most people think it is. It's currency. It's backed by nothing. It's backed by government, which doesn't mean anything. I mean, take the US dollar, it's 97% of the value is gone in the US dollar. Like, I mean, it's hardly worth anything. We continue to print it like crazy for the past 2 years. And the thing about a fiat currency, it has about an 80-year lifespan. Historically, every paper currency fails, every single one. It all comes back to its true value, which is zero. Wow. And so I have to realize I'm in a fiat world. So I've got to utilize fiat, right? It's like, if we're going to pay the electric bill, it's going to be happening in fiat.
Yeah.
But then I have to realize, well, what is money? And so we've taught our children this, like we get them silver every Christmas and a lot of holidays. We get them an ounce of silver.
Wow.
And we always say, hey, this is actually money. Like, this is real money. And so the dollars that you have are just currency. And so I have to understand the system first and foremost. So, hey, become financially literate. Start getting on YouTube, find some videos, find some people that are further along in finance. Address your mindsets. How do I relate to money? How do I relate to people that are wealthy? How do I respond when I'm with them? Like, what's going on emotionally, mentally when I'm talking to people? Do I have a frame of reference that they're all corrupt? Do I think they all lack integrity? Because, man, if they have all this resource, they probably jacked people up along the way. And it's like, and some people have that perspective, right? And then to realize, well, what's God's perspective of money? Like, how does he see this? Is money important to God? Well, yeah, Jesus talked about money more than prayer. And so if we value prayer, we should probably value money equally, if not more, according to the fact that Jesus talked about money more than prayer. And the reason he did this, at least from what I see, is that he understands that the kingdom's going to advance. It's going to take significant resource. If we're going to be a blessing to our family, a blessing to our neighborhood, a blessing to our city, etc., keep scaling that out, then we need resource in order to do this. And so simple things like live below your means. How do I multiply money? If you're putting currency into a bank and hoping that's going to work out for you and just keeping it there, I just want you to know it's not going to work out for you. Like, the bank is really messed up. And here's what a bank does. So Joseph, if you're like, hey, I'm going to put $1,000 into a savings account, that bank is going to use your $1,000. They're going to lend it out. They're going to buy gold. They're going to buy oil, all sorts of stuff. And they're going to earn bank credits by doing that, which means they get more money, and they're going to earn interest off of your currency. And then they're going to give you 0.25%, maybe, in a year. So you're going to lose money because of inflation. You're paying the bank to have your currency in there. So we have to start to think, well, how do I multiply this? How do I see resource multiply? Well, maybe I need to become financially literate in real estate, in other assets, whether it's cryptocurrency, stocks, bonds. Kind of look at the whole spectrum. Be like, I need to learn. Just expect to do the same thing over and over. And we might think, well, it's not spiritual to do this. It's like, I'm not, quote unquote, a business person. It's like, if Jesus talked about this more than prayer, then we probably should really understand it and how it works. So that would be my big encouragement.
Man, so good. Hey, guys, this is deep, right? Everything we're going into here is deep. And that's why it can't just happen in a 20-minute session. That's why we're doing a workshop. And from the workshop, there is an invite to go deeper, which for some people is exactly what's needed in this time, So we just want to invite you to this workshop that we're running, Wealth Architecture. Our goal is to help you draw up your own personal blueprint. And so we have 4 of us are from 4 different industries in a way, with the same heart, same Father, same Spirit, same purity, but different expressions. And so this free workshop is going to be super powerful, and I know it's going to shift your life. So I put the link in the caption, and also I'm going to post that in the comments right here. This thing is going to be fun. Brian, you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, we'd love to have you. I think more than any time in history, with what's happening globally, geopolitically, that we need to understand resource and how to multiply. And if you're watching this live or the replay and you're like, man, I don't know, it seems too complex, just the financial sector. It's like, hey, you have the mind of Christ, and this is going to be something that's going to help you. And it's going to help you understand the financial system that you're in, how to hack that system, and really see our mindsets upgrade and into our cosmic position in Christ, so it can elevate our life and we can be a blessing to the nations, advance the kingdom, and leave a legacy for our families. And so, love to have you. It's going to be awesome.
Boom. There you go. Some awesome comments here of people loving what you're sharing, Brian.
Come on.
And this is going to be fun. So let me ask you one last thing as we land this plane. Like, you are the most chilled guy that I know, right? Like, chilled, like you're at rest all the time. Can we talk on the power of resting in who you are in God? And because as a coach, I've taken people through this journey of starting things, launching things, and there is so much frustration that can easily show up when you know where you want to be, you know what you're trying to create, but you're still in the process of making it happen. And so, like, you might be doing ads, but you're frustrated. So you're doing the ads from a place of, I need to get it right. Or, you're trying to launch a retreat or write a book or start a business. And that rest that I see you walk in and live in. Can you touch on that a little bit and the power of that?
Yeah, I mean, the first revelation Adam had of the Father was rest. He was made in the 6th day. And so his first full interaction with the Father was walking in the cool of the day. So God wanted his first revelation for Adam to be rest, so that when he began to produce, it was built on the foundation of the seed of rest. Our culture is work really hard so that you can get to the weekend and find rest. What if we kind of even shifted how we viewed the rhythm of a day? Like, we wake up in the morning and now it's time to produce. What if you looked at the beginning of the day as the night? How do you start your day? I sleep for 8 hours. And then from there, I produce and I build. And then just understanding, think of it like surfing. Like, if you've ever surfed or boogie board, if you get ahead of the wave, it's not good, right? So if we're trying to get ahead of something, Jesus only did what he saw, what his Father was doing. He only said what his Father was saying. Nothing more, nothing less. And it always produced something. And I think there's something about, if I'm getting ahead of something, I'm trying to focus on my exertion here to make something happen. And there's a level that can happen with the human will, right? But it may not be sustainable, and it may certainly not be powerful. Now, if I miss the wave and I'm too late, well, that sucks too. But it's like when you find that rhythm and you get right into it, to me, that's that pace of grace with God. It's like I'm moving at his rhythm of his heartbeat. So I know what he's doing, I know what he's saying. And so then it becomes, well, maybe I'm not supposed to do this ad. Like, I'm actually supposed to wait a week, just to use an example like you pulled out, right? It's like, well, I'm going to do that. And versus like, let's just make this happen and bust it through. It's like, it becomes more functioning from a place of a sound mind. And, we have to have a sound mind if we're going to steward what God's called us to steward.
So good. Boom. Well, that was a bomb there to end this. I know a lot of you are launching things and starting things, and some of you might already have businesses, but maybe your business is full of the grind and barely any grace. And now it's time to align that, because I have seen a lot of, even kingdom businesses, but they run the same way. The person running it is still running ragged, and they end up dry in a year of trying to produce from somewhere else. So I hope you found this beneficial. I hope to see you in the group. I want to say one last thing, right? Like, this is for everybody. A lot of times, and maybe we've been trained to think like this, but we've thought that wealth is for certain people, a certain type of person, and it comes a certain way. But there are multiple expressions. And I want you to know that you have a wealth blueprint that is very unique and divinely designed individually for you. And so, yeah, someone might trade, and someone might run multiple businesses, and someone might own property, and someone might do all. But whatever it is, you have something for you. And that's what we're trying to help you unpack. So make sure to click that link. Check it out. Look forward to seeing you on the inside. Otherwise, have a great day, and we will see you on the next one. Bless you guys.
Peace, everybody. See you soon.
Faith and patience. Patience means allow it to happen. Stay the same. Stay persistent. Keep going. Faith, know that it can happen at any moment. Get excited because it can happen at any moment. You were so close. Don't quit now. Keep pushing. You got this.